Welcome to Rocket Ship, the podcast where web developers learn the skills and secrets to ship awesome mobile apps. I'm Simon Grimm, creator of Galaxies.dev, and today with me is Hosna. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
This is one of the cases where Hosna was, I wouldn't say a fan, but you left some comments under my videos, and in exchange I checked out because Hosna is not only a software developer herself, she's also having a pretty, I would actually say, a successful YouTube channel because you're close to 2K subscribers, and you also had I'm almost jealous, very successful videos in the past about NextJS development. I think you're close to, the one video has close to 30K views, one has close to 20K views, so tell us a bit about what you're doing, Hosna.
Yeah, for sure. By the way, I did not expect any of those to get the amount of response that they have. So I actually came across the Next.js framework at the beginning of this year, I left the industry just trying to travel and explore more about like web dev and mobile dev, and because I came from more of a hardware background, I have a background of a bachelor's in computer engineering. So I started more in the hardware realm. Yeah, so I tried to transition. I like software, so I wanted to get more into software. And my last role was I was a full stack developer but I was working at a startup. So with startups, you wear like multiple different hats. Yeah. And I was using mostly like HTML and then transitioned into React, but didn't really use any frameworks. So when I saw Next.js, I'm like, let me check this out. And I fell in love with it. But I was using initially the app directory, so it was in beta testing, and I noticed that there wasn't that much content on that specific realm of that. And I know a lot of people like portfolio websites and videos on that content, but I noticed there wasn't the type of video that had it from beginning to end, the process of creating something from scratch and then also deploying it, which I know a lot of developers struggle with, because I personally struggled with it. Yeah. And then came across Vercel, and then just wanted to share my experience with that and my love for them that I got from using them.
Yeah, I want to get into the hardware thing again, but one question I had right here is, I watched a few of your videos, and I think you had about 7 iterations of your portfolio page, but I couldn't find any live version. Like, is there a point where you want to put it out?
Yeah, so I had it public, but I'm just so indecisive with those stuff. I create like different versions of the same thing. And I'll just for you, I'll put it public again. Oh, perfect.
We're going to put that in the show notes.
Yeah, for sure. And I like tag them and make sure I have like archives of them. But I wanted to just go, I have just one page right now. I don't want to do multiple pages. I know that a lot of founders, like I think Paul Graham, the founder of like Y Combinator and like those things, they just have one simple page, They don't make it that difficult, that complicated. I know UI and UX is important. I see a lot of awesome portfolio websites that people make, and I've seen people use my template, which I'm like happy to see. It feels good, to help people like that. But I think I realized over the time the importance of like the content rather than like the quality, right? Like what are you showing? The importance of not showing too much information or overwhelming your user and stuff like that. So I'm still learning. But yeah.
I can see the progression in your videos already. Like the first video, you kind of went a little shy. Like this is not bad, because if I look at my stuff, it's horrible, the first videos. But now 6 months later, you have a new microphone, you have a better background, you're doing some editing in your latest videos, like why I switched to mobile dev, you're referencing other videos, and I can already see how you progress and learn. Like this is just awesome to see. And also just the fact that you immediately took action after seeing, okay, nobody's really doing Next.js content and I really like this, so let's just do something. This just shows like some people just have these creator genes or something. And I've seen from your link tree or whatever it's called, you're also active on Substack. So you like having a little private blog. Is that right? Are you still doing that? Or was that just one other idea you had?
Yeah, with me, I feel like I have a lot of different passions. I feel like I'm ambitious. I try a lot of different things. The thing that I struggle with is like consistency, just trying to
Hmm.
be consistent with one thing. I was talking to Hassan, who is a what's it called, DevRel advocate, I believe, at Vercel.
Okay.
And he was struggling with the same thing about like trying to stick with one project. Once you start building something, you either like get stuck somewhere or you get tired of it, so you want to do something else, and then you end up not finishing that project. With the Substack, I wanted to try to write every day, so I did that I think for like about 30 days. And then I think I sort of got a little bit of imposter syndrome, not thinking like my writing is the greatest. It was just like 30 minutes. I don't know what I'll just write whatever. I won't edit it that much because I think we sometimes get in that zone of like overthinking
Yeah.
and thinking like something isn't good or not good enough, and then you end up not releasing it. But then these past few months, I noticed like the importance of just build in public. I know a lot of people say it, and you might feel like scared to share what you have. It might not be like perfect, but that's the most perfect opportunity to get feedback from people, and just grow. Like you said, see that progression, see that growth. Like those first few videos, I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna try my best. I'm not gonna spend too much time, however many hours I need to get something out, to get it good enough. Because if you keep thinking, oh, it has to be perfect, it has to be perfect, then you're never gonna release it. So just like accepting it and just moving on and just learning
Yeah.
from it.
Yeah, I love that. I think this whole movement of built in public, it was great. And then somewhere along the way, the wrong people jumped on it. So I've been following the whole indie hacker stuff for years. And I always
Mm.
tried to build stuff. And yeah, the built in public thing became public. And everyone was sharing revenue numbers or whatnot. But at some point, it just became like a marketing strategy for most people. They just wanted to push their product from day one. And I don't know how, but I can somehow feel it in some tweets that people put out, or like the whole threads they do. Like, here are 10 tips about building something. Like, everyone's just doing this to get Twitter followers, let's be honest. And your story is different because you are actually just learning this and sharing this honestly. So I think you came back to the roots of the actual built in public. And I think that's great. And I love that, yeah, you have that in your YouTube videos. Stop overthinking, start creating, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I feel I know what you mean about that, and I experienced that too. Like there's an overwhelming sometimes there's just a lot of content, and like how do you filter that, right? Like I follow a lot of people on Twitter, but I'm trying to like go back and see like which ones the sources that I really learned something from. Or either because like you said, sometimes it's just repetitive. They're just posting the same exact stuff over and over again. The revenue, it like makes you feel bad about the stuff that you're working on because you're like, oh, I'm not
Yeah.
even making. But like, sometimes the stories are good, to see their growth and their progression. But I get what you mean to get the followers and the stuff. But I think it's important to think about the authentic side, right? There's something that I heard, like a quote saying that there's always someone that knows something less than you. But there's always you're always in a position where to share and learn your experience, even though you're like, oh, what do I know? I don't know anything. But you always know something, maybe it's that someone else doesn't, and someone else probably knows something that you don't. So it's like this weird thing of like just sharing your information, sharing whatever you're learning. I think that's important.
Yeah, I agree. And there's a recommendation as well. Clean your Twitter followers from time to time. It really helps to clear up your timeline. Just morning, or basically every day, I have at least one person who's putting up a screenshot of like 10 Stripe transaction and saying, "Oh, waking up to this is so great," and they always have like 50 likes or even more, and I'm like, "Oh, come on, this is getting so boring." I don't know, why
Yeah.
do you have to put that up? Well,
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, so you came from hardware software, no, not software development, hardware development background. What did you work on first? Like, did you have a job in that industry?
Yeah, I had a job for a little while. So I was an embedded systems engineer
Oh,
for a little
interesting.
bit at a startup, at a vertical or like a agricultural tech startup. So it was indoor farming. And we were working on a system, like a water management system that
Are you
didn't
allowed to talk
really.
about this?
I will. Well, I had a very interesting experience at that job, but as you know, like most startups don't really succeed. And I think in the beginning there was a little bit of a high, like a honeymoon stage of working at a startup because it's just so. I came from a what's it called, military and aerospace defense company before I was working as a software engineer. But that was like such a slow pace. It was a large corporation, so you just felt like another cog in the machine. There wasn't that much diversity. I was like the youngest person on the team, and
Oh, crazy.
yeah. So I transitioned into a startup. I got that position through like a post someone in my network posted, and I reached out, and I got an interview really quickly, and the process was really weird because it just happened so fast. Like I got an interview, and the next 2 days I got an offer, and I've never experienced, and I didn't go through HR or anything. I was just talking directly to the engineer that I would be working with. And I talked to the CEO and the CTO before like getting in. So that was an interesting experience. I never experienced that before. But yeah, I was working on hardware stuff, more like IoT, like Raspberry Pi and
Cool.
Arduinos and stuff, and integrating it with a real-time database, and just getting information from the water that the plants were being fed and seeing what was in it to improve the yield of the vegetables that they were growing.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
But then you decided let's go for software development instead. And how did you transition? Did you do like a boot camp, or are you self-taught?
So in school, I learned half like electrical engineering and half computer science. So like I took I did robotics and stuff in earlier, like in high school and stuff. So I was familiar. I knew Java, but my first job I learned Python. So from there I had experience from that. When I was younger, I made my own portfolio website from scratch, but using HTML and CSS. But it was terrible. It was not good. I took like some college course for that or something, and just to use whatever they were doing. But it wasn't there, like compared to how much content there is now. It's like it's crazy. It's cool to see the progression, to see like where you started and where you are right now. But yeah, from that position, embedded systems, the product was like we were almost done building the product. They needed someone to fill the role of a more software side. There was a contractor that was already working on it, but they wanted someone else from the team to work with him on it. And I said, you know, I know a little bit of HTML, CSS. I want to learn this stuff, so I'm more than happy to switch my position or learn full stack. So that's how I got the opportunity to do that.
And did you pretty quickly get into touch with React, or like I know because in Germany, like the first thing I learned here is Angular, and I know that Angular is still very commonly used in Germany because it's like an enterprise language at this point, or an enterprise framework. And React was always like the Bay Area, and everyone there is using React, and it just continued to dominate the world from there. So I guess you were just at the epicentrum of getting in touch with React early.
Yeah, I was lucky. And now looking at Angular, I'm like, oh my god, I don't want to. It's like you can't learn everything, you know. I think if you start like, I'm gonna learn this, I'm gonna learn that, I'm gonna learn this, you know, you fell into the trap of not building things. I think I learned over the time of my experience, like the importance of what you're building, what problem are you solving. I think not really focusing too much on the tech stack that you're using. I get that asked a lot. Like, what tech stack are you using? Why aren't you using this rather than that? And I'm just going based off of like what I already know. If I see a tech stack or something new, a new tech that can improve whatever I'm already currently working on, or that's better, then I'll transition into it and try to learn it and see what's the benefits and outweigh it. But there's always like, you have to think about time as well. How much time are you spending learning this? You know, what's the learning curve? Because that's something that you have to take into account, I think. Because going back to, you know, just waiting until getting it perfect, you have to get it perfect. No, I don't think there's such thing as that, you know. It's just build something, you know. I think that's the most important thing. Any developer that wants to get into this space, or someone that's in a boot camp, just start building things. I tell that to everybody. They're like, oh, how can I get a job? How can I build my portfolio? you just build it, you know, just watch like great content like yours or anybody else
or yours
or mine's self plug in. But no, but anything, you know, find templates, play around, change whatever you want and with it. Whenever you join a company, you're not, most of the time you don't build something from scratch. Something already exists. Show them that you're able to understand a repo or whatever, and be able to manipulate it, understand like how the data is flowing and how everything works, you know, because everybody has their own system. Every company has their own way of coding. So like how quickly you could pick that up, I think is valuable.
Yeah, it's just hearing you talk about it. It's such a long way for beginners. So I've been coding for, I don't know, at least like 15 years and stuff. So everything, I just see something, I try it, and it just naturally, it just fits into this picture. Like, you know what an API is, you know what JSON is, you know how to make something with a command line or whatnot. But if you're getting into this, everything is just new. Like, what's the framework? How do I host something? How do I connect a database? What is actually a database and which is the best? And like all these things. And then you talk about Git and getting into GitHub and how that stuff works. Like, that's another game. So it's really daunting to beginners. I'm kind of happy like to be in this position to know about stuff. But coming back to what you said in the beginning, there's always someone who knows more than you and a bit less than you. And to be honest, so I've been doing Ionic, Angular web content for 5-7 years. And just last year, I transitioned actually to React. And I tried React. I actually had a video 5 years ago where I said React is the next big thing. To be honest, that was the most popular video on my channel. I don't know why I didn't continue with React Native. But I still feel like there's still like not enough about React Native, because I put out a few videos, especially about Expo Router, because I got started and decided that Expo is the way to go. And the first thing, great example, I looked at the documentation and there was like, okay, getting started with React Native. You can either use the React Native CLI or Expo. I'm like, okay, what do I pick? I have no idea. And so I created a video about should you use Expo or React Native, and that's like my most watched videos over the last weeks. And everyone's just finding me now for React Native stuff, although I've just been doing React and Expo for half a year maybe at this point. So everyone can share it, just like you did with your NextJS application. And you see you have big success with like 30,000 views. That's not everyone gets a video like that.
Yeah.
So you've been doing web development then with React, and you picked up Next.js. But at some point, you decided that web is not enough and you need to go native. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, and that's how I came across your content, through your React Native stuff. And that's what I noticed too, because I think as a content creator, you could see like what's missing, what kind of content people are creating, and what content doesn't exist pretty quickly. I think Ben Awad, I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's also a YouTuber, and he was talking about there isn't that much content about like more advanced or intermediate developers. Most of the content is usually based on for beginners. And the intermediate stuff is more like really, really technical for specific situations. So anybody who could fill that intermediate or try to, you know, that sort of content will probably hit the gold mine. But I think some people are doing it. Some people are, you know, a little bit on the. It's hard. Creating content is hard.
It gets less clicks, to be honest. Like, do a video on how to build a login with React and you get 50,000 views. Do a video on how to implement OAuth with your custom whatever provider and you get like 500 views. It's just, if you're about views and YouTube, that stuff just isn't working. But of course, there are other strategies to create a living with that kind of content.
Yeah, no, for sure. You're 100% right on that too, right? But there are, though, a lot of people. I know we wanted to talk about React Native, but going back to Next.js,
no problem.
There's a lot more people that are coming out with like hours, like full tutorials beginning
yeah.
to end. You know, I think JS Mastery, I believe
Yeah,
that's the
Web Dev
channel.
Simplified and JS Mastery.
Yes,
Yeah.
Web Dev Simplified has always been out there. What I think Cody is his name. What he's been doing with that channel has been great. You know, great resources. I think another one, Code with Antonio. He's been like recently
Oh
joined.
yeah, I've just
He's
come across his last week and decided that okay, quick note about Code with Antonio. I don't know him personally, but he's definitely killing it. He has 8 videos and I think he has 60,000 subscribers. 8 videos in 6 months. 8 videos again. I have
started
close
in
to I
February.
have
This
close
year.
to 600 videos and I'm at 55,000 subscribers after, I don't know, 7 years. So it was because of Antonio that last week I decided, okay, Simon, reduce the quantity, improve the quality. So I'm now working on a huge Deliveroo food delivery clone with React Native and covering all the screens and planning a 4-hour video. So yeah.
Oh my god, that's awesome. Okay, I can't wait for that. No, but see, that's what I'm saying. Like that sort of content, right? Like you think that, oh, maybe it's not gonna do well, but look how quickly he blew up. And I reached out to him like, hey, dude, like the content that you're creating is awesome. It's amazing. You know, keep doing what you're doing. But like I'm sure he puts in hours of work into doing that. You know, I think it's hard to just make a video like that. I think there's a lot of prep involved. I think you have to create the project first.
Yeah.
Before it's hard to, you know, you see a lot of people that are just doing it live or like, and that's a little bit, it's like you don't want to watch a whole entire video and watch also the errors that they're coming into. You want to see it like actually doing it and it works for you exactly like that, you know?
Yeah, one who's killing it live is Papa React. He's doing like Sonny, what's his name?
Sonny
Sanga? Yeah, he's been killing it with live streams as well. But I know he's preparing that stuff up front. He has an employee. And so the stuff, yeah, of course, he's doing it live. And I'm doing the same. I prepare my stuff up front because I don't want to go totally blank on this. I mean, some people might have that ability, but others are, I guess, preparing it. Also, shout out to another channel that I've been checking out, which is Code with Beto. He's doing he's invited to the podcast as well. I think he will come along soon. He's also doing the same. Like he's doing, I think, React Native mostly now. And he's also growing fast because it's great. Yeah. So shout out to all those epic creators. If you can do something, it's great. But coming back to your transition from Next.js to React Native. So you started building 7 portfolio pages with Next.js, and then you tried building some sort of soccer mobile application. Maybe talk about that first. Like, what was the first plan for that application?
Yeah, definitely. So it started out as a web app. I named it like Sports Table IO. I've been working on it since last year. The concept was I noticed it's hard to watch. I just want to watch sports highlights, you know, just highlights all in one place, just a repository of YouTube videos. It's just using the YouTube API and finding the specific channels. I know on YouTube you could go find whatever highlight that you want to watch, but that channel also has other videos like interviews with the players or, you know, other promotional videos. And like, I don't really want to watch that. You know, I just want to watch the highlight for the specific team that I'm rooting for and also other teams. You know, maybe I want to see how they're doing, but I don't have the time to sift through all the content. But I tried building that. I wanted to use Python and try to automate, because another thing that's challenging is like real time. How do you get the information in real time, or if there are any updates to the YouTube channel, new videos that are posted? How do you get that most recent information? So I try to like reverse engineer it. Like, what's the final product? Like, how do you get to that? And that was a little bit of a challenge. I tried. I wanted to implement my hardware background, so I got a Raspberry Pi set up. I wanted to create like an automated script using, forgot what it's called. But there's a way to automate it using like like, I forgot what it was called. I'm blanking out right now. But there's a way to automate Python scripts to run at a specific time.
Like a cron job, basically.
There you go, cron job. That's what it's called. Yeah, cron job. I don't know why I just blanked on that. But yeah, I wanted to do that and then send it to a database and then me query that information from my web application. But the users, or the people, family, friends that were using it, they wanted like a native app rather than a website because they don't want to go to a website. And that's why I mentioned in my most recent video, Ben Awad, saying that developers want web apps and consumers want mobile apps or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where I transitioned into React Native and Expo. I knew a little bit of it because for the last few months I've been working on like a freelance project that the client wanted an app, and I was like, okay, this is a perfect opportunity to go learn it.
Yeah, that's perfect, like getting paid to learn. Huh?
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, I'm just letting you know, like, I understand what I need to do, right? I think the fundamentals is important. As long as you know, like you said, like the fundamentals of building a website, I think it's not that hard to learn a new language or framework unless it takes time, but I think from going from React to React Native was pretty smooth. It's basically, I think it's the same thing, the components-based structure. But like you mentioned, once you go to that React Native documentation, they recommend you Expo or React Native. And I didn't know what Expo was. So I'm like, okay, let me look up what Expo is. And then that's how I learned about Expo. And then I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm going to use that instead of React Native because React Native is a little bit more jungle. I don't know how to describe it, cluttered. And Expo is just so natural, so easy to learn quickly, fast, and build and deploy. And the documentation is really, really good. And right now, I believe Evan Bacon is working on the Expo router. So it's very similar to the NextJS app router. So like everything is like connecting right now if you're trying to learn these frameworks and stuff. So I would highly recommend checking it out.
Yeah, I've been enjoying Expo as well. So when I got into it, I was also like trying out Expo, and I'm like, this is super easy. Like, is there any downside to using Expo? So that also led me to creating this video, because when you look it up, you're going to find stuff from a few years ago. There was something called, I think, Expo Eject. Basically, when you want to rip out Expo of your React Native project to go like your own custom native project and do stuff, that was painful. And I think I tried this back then as well, because the docs, you get a lot of outdated stuff, and at some point I noticed, okay, this is not a thing anymore. There's no Expo pre-build, and then I got into different stuff. Well, you can have local modules, and you can have a dev client and a custom build, and like at some point the picture slowly, like it's a puzzle of different pieces that come together. I don't know if Expo could do a better job on it. It's a bit complicated because then they also have like the EAS, the Expo application services, and do you feel like, do I have to build with that? Actually, no, you can also do it locally. It's not too hard. So I can understand that it's challenging to get into this, but if you use it, and from what I heard, people just like everyone's recommending to use it today. I asked this on Twitter, and everyone, like 95% said, yeah, just use Expo if you start a new application. And yeah, Expo Router is an interesting thing. Because I exactly asked basically the same question. Should I use React Native navigation or Expo Router for my new app? And the answers are mixed, because React navigation is like the tested thing that everyone been using, and now React Router is around. I mean, React Router version 2 looks pretty awesome. Like there's TypeScript support and all kinds of cool stuff built into it. And if you ask Evan, he will just say, yeah, under the hood, we're still using Expo, like React navigation. I'm like, yeah, I understand that, but I still need to change my whole file system and everything. So yeah, Expo Router, I don't know. What's your thought on Expo Router?
Yeah, so I had a lot of things to say about what you were just talking about right now. So I think with anything, right, any technology that's being worked on or that's new, I think people that are initially using it, right, they're like early adopters, right? So you're signing up sort of for that expectation that things are like changing all the time, and it's like up to you to stay on top of it, right? Like updating your packages, or if anything changes, making sure that you have the most up-to-date versions, because as soon as something new came out and you upload it and you forget to, update anything on your package.json, right? Everything can get screwed up really fast, and I've had a lot of situations where I didn't install the correct version of Expo, most recent Expo 49 came out. I had 48, so some stuff wasn't working, or I had to wait until the newest one came out. I was having issues, and I was asking Evan. I ask him all the time for questions, and very responsive. Sometimes I feel guilty, like I'm asking you too much, but I'm like, if he doesn't want me to ask, he'll tell me. But he was like, yeah, just wait until the newest one comes out, the newest version of Expo, upgrade, and everything should be stable. Like you said, right now, I think if you want something more stable, something more that has been tested, then I would say stick with React Navigation. If you're more open to using the newest stuff and you're okay with it, maybe potentially breaking or waiting until the newest fix or patch gets pushed, then I would recommend Router. But Router has been, because that's the one issue, routing in apps gets very cumbersome, and it's very annoying to keep track of, and making sure what is in what stack. What if I need to reference a different stack outside of my current stack? How do you do that? And that's maybe some things that you come across if you're using a lot of different pages. And then also dynamic routing, which the router really the newest router is great at, in my opinion. And the structure, you don't have to have a bunch of bunch of different folders for navigators or screens. Everything is just in one folder, so it's just very easy to navigate and know where to find things. Whereas it might take a while, depending on how you structure your React Native or React Navigation project, or using that. It might be more tedious, but the initial place where I started mobile development, I initially learned Swift UI. I built an native iOS app, and that's another topic. Should I build natively, or should I use a cross-platform framework? Which a lot of people ask. For me, I'm in love with cross-platform. What's the end goal? You want to get your product to as many users as possible, right? So if you just exclude a whole bunch of users on a different device, I think that hinders your growth. So I think looking into cross-platform stuff is very important.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, people are asking this all the time. What's the best framework? What's the best? We had this in the beginning, our discussion with the different technology stacks that are around, and I think pretty much 90% of the people can just use whatever they want. Those projects are not going to be on the scale of Meta or whatever, Twitter or X. So it doesn't really matter. You can build cool stuff with pretty much all those frameworks. I've been using Cordova and Capacitor in the past, and with Ionic, so that's an UI framework. It's just you can't tell that these applications are not native. I mean, I don't want to talk about what means native. That's a whole other debate. But yeah, React Native is cool. I also tried Flutter, and then suddenly people come out oh, there's also in the .NET world, we have Maui, and then somebody else has another framework. There are solutions now everywhere. And of course, if you have the time and money, then go for native iOS. I mean, by the way, Swift is a great language. I really like Swift, and I've been a native Swift developer before, but I'm also completely sold on cross-platform, and I won't look back.
100%.
So I know you're working on a project that you renamed, I think, to Golazos. Do I say that right?
Golazos, yeah. So in Spanish, golazo is a spectacular goal someone made. Oh, nice. So I wanted something in that realm, but Golazo was taken as a domain, so I tried to do Golazos. So we'll see. But yeah, I'm currently working on that. I'm trying to do more women's sports specific, because there's not that many platforms that push women's sports content. So right now the Women's World Cup is happening. I've been watching it at 3 o'clock in the morning almost every day, trying to keep up with it because of the different time zones. But I'm there are applications like the Fox app, who is hosting or broadcasting the World Cup. They have they're keeping up to date information and highlights on their app. but it's cluttered. Like I said, they have a bunch of different tabs and they have other stuff that's going on. And they're not really promoting, I guess, as much the women's sport. So I just wanted to create an application and eventually also a web app that is also both web and mobile, of just a women's sports platform. So like go from soccer or like basketball and tennis. I know those are pretty big. So trying to do that.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a market because I thought this afternoon when you posted something about like investors jumping on this. There's a lot more money now flowing into every women's sports league, and I think just the soccer World Cup is super interesting. Also, I don't know if there's been an application, but I know that, for example, there was this. I don't know if you're into bikes, like the Tour de France is a very special bike race here in Europe, like the cycling stuff, and they had their own application where like every day there was the winner and stuff. And I don't know, like, is there an application for the Women's World Cup like that? At least for the next one, you could definitely build that one. Like, I want to see the teams, I want to see the groups, I want to see the standings. Like, I want to see all of that in one app. It's not uncommon for these tournaments to have their own app, so you should definitely prepare for that.
Yeah, I definitely prepared a little bit too late. I think I was like, I'm gonna build this in 2 weeks, right before it starts. So I think I was a little bit ambitious. Right now I pushed it to app review, at least for the iOS store. I'm waiting to get, and that's another thing with mobile though. I think, like I mentioned in my previous video on YouTube, that there's some pros and cons, right, to web and mobile dev. Mobile dev, there's a little bit more restrictions, right? You have to meet the guidelines of the iOS store or the Android store, and you have to think about a bunch of other things, and wait for processing. Whereas web dev, you could just deploy it and it's like live already, like through a few whatever, and there's no one telling you could do this or you can't do that. You have more flexibility, but that's another thing with a mobile. So
what's been the most challenging thing for you coming from web development to mobile? Was it related to these special things about iOS and Android, or was it about routing, or maybe I assume that debugging is also not something that's very easy. So what's been your like most challenging area transitioning from web to native?
I think. Yeah, the most challenging, just coming across weird bugs that that no one has solved yet, or you can't really find that many resources online. I feel like there's not as many resources on mobile dev compared to web dev now. That's another thing that I realized. I think mobile dev, at least the content, is getting more. It's great, I think it's a little bit saturated though. Right now, and especially everybody's just using NextJS. Which is
like
great.
Won.
Which is awesome, and I like a lot of people are doing more project-based content, which is awesome because I think that's I think that fundamentals are important, but I think actually getting into it and learning it as you're doing it is even better because you get to learn quickly and faster, and seeing what other people are doing and learning the terminology and the verbiage. But one thing that I was stuck for almost a month or two is universal linking in mobile apps. Like, you think it's so easy, right? You're using an app and you want to share a specific screen, and when you're using apps and they're able to do that, you're like, oh, that's so easy. And then when you're trying to build it, I'm like, oh my God, this is like so annoying. And then Evan was explaining to me how everything is connected. It's like you just go into an app, like there's this mediary, like you're gonna hit the web first and then it has to redirect you into the app, or if you have the app already, then you'll recognize it. I'm like, how is it doing that, So I think another good thing about Expo Router version 2, it's supposed to solve that universal linking problem. I've yet to implement it yet. I'm still waiting, but for the review to go through to see if it works on my app, but you could test it using, I think, the command line. I believe, like using the npx schema or something.
I think you can also for Android use the ADB tools on the command line to directly like open your app with a URL or something. Or you can also just create a text node in your device, and then it will open the website and then it will open the application. If you did it right. If you didn't do it right, I've been doing stuff for deep linking as well with Capacitor, and It's always been so painful to go through the whole setup, especially like basically everything that happens. It's 90% that happens before you actually hit your application, like creating some kind of schema file. What's it called? The app list info? No, it's for iOS, and then you have to upload it on your server, and you need to validate it, and it needs to be right, and all the IDs have to be in the right places. And then you go from dev to prod, and you're like, oh no, I need to do it again. And
that whole process. I feel you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pain, definitely. So I wanted to, we talked about this quickly before the call. I just want to, before we wrap this up, come back to, so which soccer team are you actually rooting for? That's an important question.
Yeah, so I love soccer. I think the last few years I've been, for European, at least the Premier League, I love Liverpool. My favorite player is Mohamed Salah. That's how I got into Liverpool, and then I just fell in love with the team. Like Jurgen Klopp, an amazing manager. I really like him. For the women's side, there's a new women's soccer team that came to Los Angeles. They're called Angel City FC. So I've been going to a few games to that.
Awesome.
Yeah, so it's been really great immersing myself into soccer. Yeah.
How's the soccer landscape in the United States? Is it built on this franchise system? So I know this franchise system from the NFL, but in Europe we have these leagues. Like if you're bad in a year, then you drop a league or you go up. What's the system you have in the United States for soccer?
I don't think we have a system. We have a couple leagues for the men's. We have just the Major League Soccer. They call it MLS. But I'm not familiar with
and Messi
the other
joined somewhere, right?
I'm sorry?
Messi,
yeah. Messi joined Inter Miami.
Oh,
Inter
yeah,
Miami.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, well, David Beckham, he's, I think, got him in. But yeah, because of Messi, like the viewings of the MLS games are now skyrocketing. They're like getting really good. So I think now it's getting popular. But I don't know. They probably do have like lower division leagues and I think what's it called? Relegation? Is that what it's called? I forgot. Yeah. I think they do have that. I think they do that, but I don't think it's as like talked about compared to like the different leagues in Europe.
Yeah.
But it's not as popular. I think it's getting popular slowly, soccer or like football. But we can't say football because
it's crazy you say soccer because football and it's played with the foot and football is actually played mostly with your hands. I don't know who made that.
I know,
So let's check how much background knowledge you have. Do you know the club where Jurgen Klopp was before Liverpool?
Isn't it? It's a BVB, right? No.
Yes.
Is it BVB? But I don't know what it stands for. I forgot it.
Borussia Dortmund.
Oh, okay, Dortmund. Dortmund.
Dortmund is a city.
Yeah.
Yes, Jude Bellingham played there. Yeah. So I have a season ticket for Dortmund for about 8 years. Yeah. I've been going there all the time with my brother and my wife until our daughter was born, and now she's turning 5 this year, and we slowly have the chance to go back there again. It's a pity. I don't know if you followed the German league. Last year, Dortmund was actually about to win.
I saw that.
And on the last day, we lost. And it was a hard day for. We were here celebrating basically, like we made barbecue, and like the enemy wasn't really hard to play against. So we were like, what can go wrong? And then like 30 minutes in, we were 0-2, and everyone was, oh no, this can't be true. This can't be true. Like Munich has been the champion for, I don't know, 10, 11 years now. So, that was our best chance, but
No, but I like Germany. They were really good. I know Thomas Müller, right? I think he was the captain for a while. I remember, watching that year. I think when you guys won the World Cup,
in
right?
Brazil, right?
Yeah, that was insane. That was a great game. Yeah.
Oh yeah. But now they're playing like I don't know. I think next year or in 2 years there's like the European Championship, and it's in Germany or something spread across Europe, and we're so bad. I don't know if we can at least get like into the quarterfinal. I don't know. No, not really. Anyway, this has been great. I got a quick question round to wrap this up with you. Are you prepared for 5 quick questions? You're going to give me a spontaneous quick answer.
I guess I don't have a choice. You didn't tell me about this.
True. Very true. Okay, let's go. Quick fire round. Okay, question number 1. Star Wars or Star Trek?
Oh my God. Star Wars.
Okay, good. You're keeping up the chances to return to this podcast.
Okay.
That was actually a wrong answer that you could have given. Okay, next question, Mac or Windows?
Mac, 100%.
Oh, nice. I love it. Your favorite IDE?
I like Visual Studio.
Visual Studio Code, I assume.
Yeah, Visual Studio Code. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's also Visual Studio for
Yes,
C++.
yes, code, not Visual Studio, because it will never open on my computer. It keeps crashing.
It was horrible to set this up in the past. I got started with C++ when I was younger. It was no fun, definitely. Okay, the latest discovered package, library, or service that you can recommend? Anything fancy you came across lately?
I'm trying to think. Not too fancy, but the most recent thing that I came across was React Native Glimmer or something for like loading states.
What is that? There's so much new to figure out about React Native. Like, at some point I discovered there's the React Native blur view, and I was like, that is pretty epic. Or the gradient background. So what's it called? React Native Glimmer?
Glimmer or something like that. I think,
shimmer?
you know... Shimmer. Yeah, shimmer. Shimmer Glimmer or something like that.
I'm gonna definitely add this to the show notes.
Yeah. But it's for like loading states. Like if you're waiting for your data to query from a database or something, you could like show like placeholder stuff, and it just looks nice.
I usually know this under the name skeleton views.
Skeleton. Yeah,
is it like that
too. But the shimmer one is nice because it...
Like when you open YouTube and it shows these gray boxes, that stuff?
Yeah.
Perfect.
I think those are, it's also called skeleton.
Awesome. Okay, last question. Your latest useful purchase. This doesn't have to be related to tech. It can be anything, but especially it should be useful because we all purchase so much trash. If there's anything,
I think whatever I purchase, I try to use it to the best of my ability. What has been something? So I'm going to be traveling soon. I'm also going to the World Cup this year. I'm going to New Zealand next week. So I got this little mini lint roller, travel lint roller. So I've been using it because I have 2 cats. So they get hair everywhere. So that's been very useful.
But they're not traveling with you, I guess.
No, I wish I could bring them. But I don't know if they would enjoy that. But no.
Anyway, thank you, Hosna. This has been really great. Where can people find more about you? Where should they check you out? What do you want to plug? Now you're 30 seconds to shine.
Yeah, for sure. They could find me on Twitter at hkasmi. My last name is a little bit interesting. It's Qasmei. As well as on YouTube, same thing, hkasmi. I have a website, but it's just one page, like I mentioned, if they want to go check it out. And GitHub, hosnakasmi.com, and GitHub, same thing, hkasmi. It's the same throughout all my platforms, but... yeah, that's all I have. I try not to use too much social media. I don't have Instagram. I don't have other things. Yeah, just the necessary stuff.
I read your Substack post on fear of missing out. I highly agree. I completely agree. I recently deleted the Instagram app as well because I couldn't stick to it. Anyway, it's been great. Definitely, everyone, make sure to follow Hosna. I've been following her YouTube channel as well. I love the build. I'm really pumped about the quality you already have right now with the videos and the editing you do. So I'm looking forward to everything you ship over the next time. And if you want to find more about me, check out galaxies.dev, place where you can learn React Native, tons of courses, and of course, check me out on YouTube. Thanks, Hosna, and hope to catch you again in the future.
Thank you so much. It was great talking to you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.